Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning. I'm so excited to have everybody here with me again today for another Fearless Female. So today we're talking with Laura Nardella, and this is one portion of the interview that I thought was really interesting. She said, I think because I'm not, like a married mother living in the suburbs, there have been a lot of moments where the expectation was that I should work later or travel more or be more available. And flexibility is often treated like something you earn when you have kids. She said, I believe that working parents deserve flexibility wholeheartedly. Of course they do. But I also believe that flexibility and balance is a human need. And it just stopped me in my tracks. I really started thinking about that because I feel so strongly that you bring your whole person to work, that my employees have hopes and dreams and problems and things that they're dealing with. And I always try and support and be flexible with that. And in return, they are 100% behind me all the time. I have had nothing but good experiences with that. And I didn't really think about the fact that it shouldn't be just for those that are, have young kids or those that are caretaking for a parent or have a new pet or something like that. Like that flexibility, you need to have that flexibility and have it as a right, not something that you have to earn. Somewhere along the way, like workplace culture started treating exhaustion like a badge of honor and flexibility like something you had to earn through like specific life circumstance, hospital stay or something like that. How awful is it that we don't just afford other human beings some grace, some time to breathe, the ability to have balance between work and home, just as a matter of right? It's human. And I loved how Laura kind of brought this out. She talks about ambition and burnout and health scares and leadership and the pressure that many women feel to constantly prove your worth. This exhaustion culture. I work this many hours, or I travel this much, or how we're always competing to see who gets the least amount of sleep. So I found that so interesting, and I hope that you guys enjoy this episode because I really did get a lot out of Laura's story. So let's get started. Good morning, Fearless Females. So today we have Laura Nardella, and she is a sales leader, and I'm so excited to get to chat with her. I've had a chance to talk with her just a little bit beforehand, and she's just got some really great ideas. So I'm excited for your story. Laura, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lorie, for having me. I'm a fan of the podcast and a listener and looking forward to chatting with you today.
So my first question is making my book list. I have someone who says, I've got 2 stacks of books in the back of my room this high that I haven't read. And that's kind of where I'm at, but I still keep asking it because it's my favorite question. I'm a reader. What is your favorite book?
Okay, so this is one I think you should move to the top of that pile. Okay. It's called A House in the Sky. It's by Amanda Linhout and Sarah Corbett, and it's about a woman and a man actually who are held hostage in Somalia. Oh. It's certainly not a beach read, but it's all a true story and live recount. And it was one of those books I read about 10 years ago and still sticks with me as my favorite. It's one of those stories where you leave being like, wow, I can't believe that actually happened. I'm a big nonfiction fan myself. It seems to keep my attention. So more where that came from, but put it on your list.
Oh, yeah, that does sound really interesting. I read one several years ago, like 10 years ago, that was kind of along the same lines. And it just has stuck with me so vividly for so many years that another good suggestion in that same genre sounds amazing.
Ooh, can you tell me what that is?
I always forget the name of it, but I'll tell you what, I will post it and I will send you a link afterwards because it was really, really good. So
perfect.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get where you're at? Did you always know what you wanted to be? Was it a straight path? What are you kind of doing now? What amazing things are you putting out in the world? Who are you? Tell us just a little bit about you, Laura.
Yeah. So I would say my path has been a little bit accidental and a little bit intentional all at the same time, probably as many people can relate. And I've built a career in digital advertising, really leading sales and account management teams at fast growing tech companies. Some consider me a glutton for punishment. I like getting in the ground early and helping build and be able to see the forest through the trees. So, I think if you look at my resume or my LinkedIn, it looks very traditional with promotions and bigger roles and more responsibility, kind of moving my way up the ladder. But I think the success is not just in the numbers, but really about the people that I've met and the relationships that I've built and kind of the resilience that I've faced along the way. So certainly have moments that have felt really hard and navigated a lot of organizational changes and tough markets, and more recently some personal challenges that have really forced me to rethink balance and how I show up in the workday. But what I would think has gotten me there is a curious mindset, not being afraid to evolve and pivot and raise my hand when I have questions or, something doesn't feel right or I want more responsibility. So, yeah, I would say what I'm doing now is a lot of exploring of what's next. I actually just recently completed an AI course that I found really interesting, and I think it made me aware that there's still so much to explore. And I'm really curious about how AI is going to help accelerate sales. I really don't think it's here to take jobs. I think it's here to make us smarter and more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always interesting. I'm looking into the AI space as well and doing a lot of research and development. I like to get in and make things work. And then when they don't work, then I ask the questions, okay, how come it's not working and how do I make it work? So I get that idea of curiosity. So did you go to school to be a tech person or a salesperson or what?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, so my degree is in public relations and promotional marketing. And I think when I was an undergrad, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that that field and that space interests me. And then I was lucky enough right out of school to get my first job at MTV, which at the time was so fun. It was like in the days of The Hills and all those shows and kind of the digital movement. And I loved it so much. And I was hired actually as a temporary. I was covering a mat leave for 3 months. So it was a contract role. And then I was hired on full time. So a little bit of right place, right time, and a little bit of, proving myself in that short period. And then over time, I realized, one, I really liked it. And two, I was good at it. So I kind of started as an assistant and moved my way to a planner, account management, sales, and then eventually into people leadership. So it's been the opportunity to kind of see where the trends are heading and get in at the ground early at companies like Hulu and Spotify and Reddit. And so it's been fun.
Oh, that's so cool. So how did you go from it's just like kind of you were on like the front lines of the industries you were in. And so MTV was kind of new and fresh back then. Now it's maybe not, but then you just kind of went into other tech areas.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew I wanted to take the digital route. Some people stay in ad sales for linear or TV, and I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I took a look at like what industries are popping from connected TV back when I worked at Hulu. It isn't what it is today, to online streaming. I was one of the first US employees at Spotify before the company even launched in the US. So that was such a fun experience. I remember sitting in a Starbucks with my phone, just Skyping, if you remember Skype, people in Sweden. Some of them weren't even speaking fluent English and just trying to, get the office off the ground. And it really paid off. And so that's kind of my my superpower, if you will, is just trying to understand like what's going to be the next hot ticket and how do I find my way in. So yeah, it's been interesting.
That's just what I was going to ask. Like, how did you know what the next big thing was? It's just a talent, like your spidey sense is telling you.
I always have prided myself on having a good intuition. That Spotify in particular, one of my old bosses brought me over, and it was just kind of a little bit of blind faith and trust. And then as I matured in the business, started to do my homework and started to network and understand like what's going to happen. Like, for example, when I went to Reddit, it was a 15-year-old company that looked like Craigslist. But as they started to launch the ad sales team, I knew how much power there was in the reach and the content on the site, and just leaning into, faith that it was going to be cleaned up and we were going to get the right products, and I was going to be part of setting that vision and hiring the right people. And yeah, it was fun to see a company go from virtually zero ad revenue to taking them public a couple of years ago. So all big learning experiences along the way. And when I left Reddit, it certainly didn't look how it did when I started, but that's part of the fun of the ride.
Yeah. It sounds like my kind of world, actually. I like turning chaos into calm, like trying to make something that is chaotic and big and huge into something that is organized and easy to understand. And I love that. Tell me a little bit about the best investment that you made in yourself. If you can kind of look back over your trajectory in your career, is there anything that you can say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that. It made a huge difference.
Yes. First of all, I was going to say, I think give your new book title, Chaos into Calm.
Oh, there you go.
If you're ever to publish yourself. Best investment. Yeah. I mean, look, I could say like coaching or therapy or something like that. But the reality is learning to set proper boundaries. And I think for a long time, what I thought was making me successful was saying yes to everything and being available and being that seller with the highest meeting count or the most revenue, or, jumping in for all the projects and working day and night, getting up at 6 a.m. to work out and then taking clients out after work and just burning the candle at both ends and being fueled off of coffees and bagels and nothing healthy, right? But eventually burnout does crouch in, and that doesn't elevate you. There's a point of no return, right? And so I think my personal aha moment came last year when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it really forced me to slow down and ask myself, like, how do I want to show up, and what kind of human do I want to be, and how does my health play into that? And so that's when I really started investing in learning how to set boundaries and take my own well-being into account, because when you manage your own energy, you show up better for yourself and for other people at work. And, that's outside of just managing your own calendar and running like a chicken with your head cut off back-to-back meetings and being like, I haven't had lunch. I haven't even peed all day, right? Like, how many times have I done that? And I realized that's not showing up as the best version of yourself. So
yeah, I think that's a really valuable point that people kind of forget. And women in particular, we feel a little bit like superwoman, like we can just do everything. We can say yes to everything and we'll just find the time somewhere. And I think that idea of setting boundaries, like what is my most important priorities, and really dialing down on those priorities and remembering what they are, because I will set them. I will say, okay, these are my top 3 things, but then something shiny comes along. Really good. And like, maybe I want to do that too. And so I'll just put it in, and then something else shiny. And pretty soon I'm way over here on the right when I should have been straight in the middle. And like reviewing those priorities to set your boundaries, even for yourself, because you do tend to go in that direction, right?
Definitely. I think everything that you just said is so spot on. And I'm sure so many of your listeners can resonate with that, because we, especially as women, being good multitaskers, it's a blessing and a curse, right? And I hate that it took something like that for me to learn how to do it properly, but I take it as a silver lining from the experience and just being more self-aware on, what you put into your personal life in terms of recharging the batteries and choosing to do a few things really well rather than a million things half-assed is, I think, so much more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could probably have a conference, like a one-day conference or a one-week conference on all those things, that the ways to kind of keep ourselves on track and deliberately watch our energy. And it is hard, that things that we have to have these really hard things come up in our life to remind us what is important. But it also does remind us what's important. And so we managed to get back on track again. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is the worst advice someone gave you, Laura? Have you ever gotten some really bad advice, and did you take it or did you not?
That is a great question. I've certainly been given bad advice. Sometimes you think it's good advice or you trust the source it's coming from. But one particular, as it pertains to work, is I was once told by an old manager to quote unquote pick up the pace. And, hindsight's always 20/20. And this was coming from someone who really was a workaholic and a shark seller and lacked the EQ and skill to truly develop people, and just thought, back to almost what I was saying before, that grind around the clock is going to lead to more revenue. But at the end of the day, that's what causes burnout. And so at first I did, and then it quickly made me realize how fast my cortisol levels were rising, and that I wasn't feeling aligned. I would say it really helped develop and shape my own leadership style, because leading by example and tapping into that vulnerability of being able to actually unplug in the evenings or weekends or when I'm at work, on vacation, is allowing me to show up more focused, more energized, and really create that balance that makes me enjoy work and not resent it. Because when I have the time to have dinner with loved ones and go to the gym and do those things, then I'm at work like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, versus falling behind in life when you're just working around the clock and quote unquote picking up the pace. For me, it was terrible advice. So I take that to heart.
Yeah. I think that's really important, and something that I actually run into quite a bit is the fact that people will, they tell me that their values are such and such, and they give me what they are, but they're spending their money in this way. Or they're telling me, hey, I value family above all else, but I'm spending 80 hours a week at work with 0 vacation time, right? So like, I think that's really important to kind of understand how your values align with the way that you spend your time, and keeping it in mind that in order for you to show up at your best, you do need those recharge times. You do need the time to focus on what is important to you.
Yes. I think this is something we all know intellectually, but putting into practice is a muscle that we have to flex. And especially being a people leader, one of your most important roles is to show up how you want your team to show up. And so that's something that I really take pride in. I don't like sending emails late at night. There's always going to be those emergencies, right, where you're stuck working after hours. But aside from that, really taking work as an area of your life and not the way to define your life is what works best for me, and what I would recommend for others as well.
Oh, I so believe in that. And I'm going to tell you, Laura, I did something so great last week. I'm so proud of myself.
Tell me.
Yes, my assistant took the week off, and she's pretty accessible most of the time. And so I deliberately tried to, I didn't email, I didn't call, I didn't text, I didn't talk to her about work-related things for the entire week so she could have the whole week off. And I thought that was, because she she would jump back into work. And for that idea of showing them the way that they should be doing it by doing those things yourself, so not pulling them back in and expecting them to be on when they're taking time off to recharge their batteries.
Yes. I love that you were aware of that and put it into practice, because guess what? That's why she likes working for you. That's the type of leaders that people like to follow, and you're giving her the opportunity to take her space and then come back excited. And I love that you did that.
Yeah. So I was proud of myself, and I'm going to do even better at it next time.
There you go.
So tell me, what about a situation that you can maybe look back on that you're like, oh, I wish I had a do-over. Like, I've learned so much. I would really handle that situation better. Knowing what I know now, I would go back and do it differently. Is there something that you can think of through your journey that was like that?
Yeah, there are a lot of things like that. And I like to, rather than focus on an example for this, I want to talk about kind of my POV on the fact that those moments are keys to success, and those regrets, if you will, can be lessons. And what I mean by that is, like, what I try to do anytime I have, maybe it's an interview I'm going on, maybe it's whatever it is, a client meeting, I like to do a quick evaluation in real time and say what worked, what didn't, and what could I have done differently. And the goal of that little exercise is not to beat myself up or focus on the negative and, shame for, hey, this didn't go well, but it's more of like, every conversation could go so many different ways. So what are different outcomes, and how could they have gone maybe better, maybe not as good? And practicing that in real time, it only takes like 2 minutes, gives you an opportunity to come to each next opportunity with a little bit more wisdom and clarity. So that's generally how I like to look at any situation I might regret. I would say, like, with that, it's all about, am I making progress, right? It doesn't have to be perfection, but going to back to that goal of curiosity and authenticity is like, okay, there are little stepping stones along the way, and it's not going to be one linear straight line, right? And anyone who expects that is setting themselves up for disappointment, and just kind of going with it and understanding, like, the more we can give ourselves and others and receive feedback, the lighter it becomes, and the more we realize it's just helping us along the way. So I know that wasn't a specific example, but it's just the approach I like to take when thinking about those things.
I like that idea. And I like that you put in there, what did I do well? Because that, like, what worked, I think that a lot of times when you are beating yourself up over those past situations that you could have done better, you forget to say, well, what did I do well? What can I take out of that situation? If I always started with the after action, like going through those things, I always started with, well, where did we shine?
Yes. It's such a good point, because in work, especially, we can focus so much on negative, or what else can we be doing? What can we do doing better? But celebrating, I always tell my teams, like, let's celebrate small wins, non-revenue wins, because those are the little things that build our confidence. And remember that it's important to celebrate things along the way. Yeah.
So I love that thought of just kind of looking through what you're doing well and where you can make changes, and always calibrating and kind of going back and looking at that situation. If you could go back and high five yourself for one really great financial decision in the past, what would that be?
Ooh, I love this question. Honestly, it's investing in a financial advisor.
I love that answer.
Yeah. He's the best. I trust him with my life, I swear. But he has really helped consolidate all my assets, 401ks from past jobs, etc. And handing over the keys is a good lesson in trust, but also it's a great example of, like, we don't have to do everything ourselves. Mm-hmm. Seeking help, there are professionals and experts in every area that are there to make our lives easier and better. And that decision has allowed me to have some financial freedom and live the life I want to live. So if anyone needs a referral, I'd be happy to share.
Well, that's great. I love that, because I do financial advising, and I love the idea of helping my clients to kind of get their assets all in order. And, they're busy. They're busy living their life. They're busy doing their jobs. And it's really hard you can't be perfect at absolutely everything. I like what you said about letting somebody else take the reins on some of those things that we love at a 10 and you may not love as much as we do. So tell me, what scared you the most when you started out on your journey? Is there something that you were like worried about, but maybe you've learned that now it's not so scary, or you've learned how to deal with that?
Yeah, I think in terms of scared, like the thought of being wrong in public scared me. I don't actually know what led to this, but I thought in the professional world, you had to have your answers 100% right all of the time. And early in my career, that was a belief. And I think it probably caused me to not speak up as much as I would, could, or should have. But now I think being exposed to strong leaders and understanding, like, it's not all black and white. Part of what the beauty of learning and bringing diverse perspectives is taking a stand and having a POV and not being afraid to share it and also hear other people's perspectives. You could say the same about politics or religion or whatever, just, whatever you believe is not right or wrong. It's about learning more, and the more we can speak to others. And I think that there's a strength in that vulnerability and that people can relate to and drive connections. So I would say now it still intimidates me, don't get me wrong, but if you're in the room with the right people, you'd be able to share what you want to share and be accepted for it. And I think that's the most important piece.
Yeah, I like that idea that you can kind of share your experience, and maybe you don't have to feel so, I don't know, imposter syndrome, something like that. Like, there isn't as much of that as you grow into yourself, your skin, your job, and that curiosity can take over. You don't feel like you're a dum-dum because you're asking questions, right?
Exactly. It's all conversation.
Yeah. Did you face any unique challenges along the path because you were a woman?
Yeah, that's such a brave question, I think, that you're asking. And the answer is yes, and probably not in the way that people might expect me to be answering. I think the biggest challenge I've experienced as a woman who does not yet have kids is the unspoken assumption that my time is somehow more valuable or flexible than a working mom's.
Yeah.
And I've experienced it a lot. I think because I'm not, a married mother living in the suburbs, there have been a lot of moments where the expectation was that I should work later or travel more or be more available. And flexibility is often treated as something you earn when you have kids. And I believe that working parents deserve flexibility wholeheartedly. Of course they do. But I also believe that flexibility and balance is a human need, not just a parental perk. And that's really shaped of a lot of how I lead about creating really intentional office cultures where, back to that word, boundaries are supported for everyone, regardless of your stage of life. And equality isn't about supporting moms, it's supporting all humans that you're working with.
Yeah, that's really an important point too. And I think that, there's working dads, there's people that are caretakers, there's people that you just, like you had a health scare or something like that. Like there are lots of reasons that you need that flexibility, and that shouldn't just be one reason, right? It shouldn't just be for one group of people or one reason. I like that. I like that you pointed that out.
Yeah, I think it's important. Everyone's going through their own their own challenges, and it's important to honor that.
Mm-hmm. What is the thing, Laura, that you are most proud of?
Ooh. I mean, look, what I'm really most proud of is becoming cancer-free. Like 4 surgeries, a year and a half later, I'm finally closing the chapter on that journey. And, I attribute it to not only my incredible medical team, but my network of friends, my amazing family, people that have showed up for ways that I couldn't imagine. And as that pertains to this conversation, it's the ability to identify those silver linings. And that is really starting to become my purpose, inspire people to look out for those moments. And like we talked about before, like celebrate those wins. So I think it all is intertwined to my professional life and to, leading with intention, with purpose. So I like to try to reminders, and anyone who's listening that's going through a tough time, even those seasons, there's moments of light if you're willing to look for them. And it's inspired me actually to become on the leadership council of the Pink Agenda, which is a non-for-profit organization supporting breast cancer patients. And it's given a new fulfillment to what I do every day. So, it's exciting.
I like that you found the rainbows in the rain. I mean, do you think that's you looked and said, yeah, this was a really hard thing for me, but I'm going to take out of these things that I can bring into the world and be more present in this space of breast cancer awareness and helping out in that space. You could have gone a lot of different ways with that. I'm excited and pleased that you decide to make a difference.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I think there are people who become the victim and think, why me? And go down a really tough path. And I've, of course, had those moments, but being able to realize how lucky I am that I overcame it and that I live in a place with amazing doctors and have health insurance and all of those things, and the strength and being otherwise young and healthy to get me through that is really where I'm choosing to focus. And I know breast cancer affects 1 in 8 women, which is wild, and it's getting younger and younger. And so if there's anything I can do to be an advocate and support and inspire people that might have a similar journey, then that brings me joy.
Yeah, I love that. Any advice for a young lady, Laura, who's just kind of starting down this path that you're successful at already to help her be successful like you?
Yeah, I mean, have the confidence of a man. All joking aside, but also like advocate for yourself. Professionally in the healthcare world, you have to be your own voice. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Another piece of advice I have is to network. Like those connections you make that you might think are just in and out of your life, like make the effort, add them on LinkedIn, ask to get coffee every now and then, because you never know who is going to make an introduction to your next job, your future partner, whatever it might be. Having advocates is super important. And I would say the last piece of advice that I want to share here is like, create your individual path and own it. Your timeline shouldn't look like anyone else's in terms of where you're going, why you're going, or how you get there. And that is what makes us all unique and complements each other, right? Being able to celebrate other people's success only, what's that phrase? Rising tide rises all ships, or whatever it is. It's so true. Like we don't need to be carbon copies of each other. So just believe the path that you're on.
I love that. That's a really great takeaway. Believe the path that you're on. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura, for spending some time just sharing your journey and sharing your experience. I really appreciate it. If we have young ladies who want to ask you questions, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm completely open. They can email me. My email is laurajanenardella@gmail.com. So I can maybe we can type that in the copy, or I can spell it out, whatever is easiest.
No, I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes so that they can catch that. So thank you, Laura, for your time today and for your amazing experience. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Lorie, for having me. I love chatting with you, and I'm so excited to be connected with you moving forward.